You're listening to the So Good It Doesn't Make Sense podcast, a podcast for women navigating divorce who want more. More clarity, more money, more peace, more power. I'm Megan Norris, divorce expert, coach, and the friend who's going to tell you the truth. Not just about what's happening right now, but about what's possible for you next. This podcast is about making decisions you trust, building a life you actually want, and becoming the version of you that no one saw coming. Whether you're in it, ending it, or already out, you're in the right place. You're about to become the CEO of your life and create one so good it doesn't make sense. Let's get started. Hi, happy Monday. Welcome back to the episode, or welcome back to the podcast. I just figured out that I don't have to be leaning in so close to this microphone for it to pick up my voice beautifully. So I'm batch recording a couple episodes, but I'm sitting back now. I feel a little more chill. It's good. We're going to talk about your kids, the kids, and we're going to have some real talk. And I'm going to tell you how to give them the best possible chance at being more than okay, which is what we all want desperately. I have 3 kids. If you didn't hear on the last episode, they are 15, 14, almost 11. They're in 3 different schools this year. And I will tell you, at the beginning of the year, it was violent. The schedule chose violence. And I went through this period of, I would say, about 8 weeks, 2 months, where I was so disoriented in my own life that I would get turned around going from not remembering where I was going or how to get there. And a couple of things, like there was a lot of construction here. So there'd be like side detours overnight. That didn't help. But then also I bought a house and moved into a house over the summer. So the route changed. And also my oldest goes to swim team practice at the university first thing in the morning and then gets bused to one high school, but then picked up from another high school. It's a whole thing, whatever. It doesn't matter why. So all of a sudden, overnight, I went from a pretty simple, both boys getting dropped off at the same middle school at the same time, and the youngest at the elementary school, to 3 different drop-offs and almost three different pickups depending on the day, because the middle one was also in extracurriculars now. So he would have a meeting after school. And I swear I was just so untethered for about 8 weeks. I just remember having to talk myself through the reality. Okay, it's 3:00 right now. I have to go to this school. Okay, we're going to get there by turning left up here, and just really like rewiring my brain. And it's so interesting now, almost the whole school year later, we're about to be done with this year, how much my capacity has grown, because I wouldn't say our schedule's necessarily easier now. It's just that I have expanded my capacity for carpooling, basically, is what has happened. So that's a little insight into where we are. When I got divorced, my kids were, 12, 11, 7. So they felt really little at the time. If you have littler ones, it probably feels like that would be old and amazing, or maybe easier. But at the time, they felt really little. And I just was really worried that they were not going to be okay. And I realized that no amount of me worrying about them being okay, no amount of hypervigilance about what they were doing or not doing was going to make them okay. In fact, at the end of the day, I cannot guarantee that they're going to be, quote, okay, whatever that means for me. So I want to lead with this because I think people are afraid to say it, because we don't want to think about the possibility. The truth is that we don't know if your kids are going to, quote, be okay, whatever that means for you. We don't know that, and we can't guarantee it. But that was true before you got divorced. It's true for all of us. When we come to this earth and our soul enters the body, we're all here on different assignments, and we don't know ahead of time how it's going to unfold. So I can't promise you for sure that your kids are going to be okay. And I think when we can acknowledge that as a reality, we take a lot of the pressure off because we already know this deep down. We really want someone to tell us exactly how we can make sure that doesn't happen. But the truth is, you just can't guarantee it. So now what? And we start with the premise, we can't guarantee it. We can't control it. What do we have agency over? What can we control? Where is our power? Because it's not, if I could force them to hurry up and be okay, then I would have done it. And if anybody could have, I don't think anybody tries harder than a parent worried about their child during a major adversity or upheaval in their life. So if it was possible, then all kids everywhere would be okay. So it's not possible. So now what? The answer is, of course, you. And I have some amazing news. While you can't guarantee that they're going to have any certain life experience or experience of your divorce, you can create the best possible chance. You can optimize their thriving by taking care of yourself. Here's what I see parents and especially moms doing. I mean, I only work with women, but I talk to men sometimes in the DMs, and I used to do consultations, and I would have consultations with them occasionally. I think I only ever had one male client, and he canceled halfway through. I don't know what that says. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I digress. I even forgot what I was saying. I got so distracted by that. My point that I'm trying to make, because I am not starting this over, is that you're the answer. Oh, I know. What I see moms doing is looking for a checklist for what they need to do, what they need to say, the script. Give me the script. What do I say to my child that's going to make them feel okay and therefore hopefully be okay? And it's the wrong question to ask. It's the wrong question to ask because it does not matter what you say. It matters what you do. We've heard this adage forever. It's especially true here. Your kids don't care what you say. They're watching you. So your job is to show them how to be okay. If you want them to thrive, you have to thrive. What? Yes, this is the truth of the world. The truth of the world. According to my brain and experience, both personally and professionally. You want your kids to thrive? You have got to lead the charge because they are looking to you for how to do that. So if you're hyper focused on them being okay, but you're not doing the work and paying attention to yourself to make sure that you're okay, that you're emotionally regulated, that you have a vision for your life, that you're taking steps towards it, that you're living authentically with some self-awareness, they cannot know how. They won't know how. And no amount of talking is going to change that. So I think this is good news because you're the only thing you can control anyway. But I understand that sometimes in the beginning, that's a very vulnerable thing to acknowledge, that you are about to take center stage in your own life, that your divorce needs to be and gets to be about you, and that you can trust yourself to do that. We get real mixed up about the definition of selfishness and self-centeredness or arrogance. Narcissism gets thrown around ad nauseum, and you're so afraid to trust yourself to make your life about you that you make it about the kids, and then they don't have an example to look to. So I've coached many clients who are just terrified to look at what it is they really want and to figure out how to get that and how to make their life reflect that desire. Because they think that their desire has to come at the expense of their kids. But in all the hundreds of women that I have spoken to and worked with, hundreds of you over the years, I have never once encountered a mother who didn't want to be a good mom and take into account what her kids would want and need and what was best for them. Ever. Not once. Therefore, what you want is always what's best for the kids. I'm going to say that again. What you really want is always what's best for the kids. And what if you trusted that? What would change if you stopped avoiding yourself and hyper fixating on them and instead loved them and took care of them, but put the focus back on you? Because that's what they really want, right? Kids just want their parents to be okay because their safety and survival is tied into their parents thriving and being emotionally healthy, physically healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually healthy. So they're invested in that. Even if it's uncomfortable or they have big feelings about it, they're really invested in that. And they chose to come to you. They chose you as their mother for a reason. And so, listen, here's the thing. You can explore what it is you want and need without doing anything. You can make a decision and never do anything about it. You can acknowledge what you want and never do anything about it. But I would encourage you to start prioritizing it and start creating evidence that you are incredibly trustworthy. I'll give you some personal examples. So after my divorce was final, it was really important to me, like maybe the number one thing, to create some financial security and stability. Because without food, shelter, water, which you need money to provide for those things, it gets very hard to prioritize emotional health, right? That suffers. And also, it was not just survival based. Please don't get me wrong. I am incredibly ambitious. And I used to be so ashamed of my drive and my work ethic and my curiosity and my desire to explore new ideas and learn new things and try new things and be successful financially. I used to be so ashamed of that. And I knew that I knew that my life after divorce would have to include a heavy focus on my purpose and my career. That's what I wanted. I am not suggesting that this is the right way. I'm just telling you what my desire was. And that was the first thing I wanted to do. I tend to be a little analytical, and if you haven't noticed, and I like I'm like one thing at a time kind of person, right? Because I get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed by the big picture and then I don't know where to start. So what I did is I broke it down. I said, okay, the first thing has got to be the finances. I have to figure this out. The second thing was our housing. Okay, I got our finances. I got this flow happening. Now I have to figure out our housing. And we ended up moving cities uh, because I had to sell our house because I could not refinance it. I didn't have the income history. So I had to sell our house. We ended up moving cities. Okay, so then we had our housing. Then I was like, okay, the kids need to be thriving in a school where I want them to be. Then I took care of that. That's like third on the list. In the meantime, I maintained the status quo. So while I'm putting my business and our financial security first and really indulging my desire to work professionally, which I had been unable to really acknowledge when I was married, really unleashing that and just letting it free and loose and to work as much or as little as I wanted, which was I just wanted to work. I wanted to be in my business. I wanted to serve my clients. I wanted to get my thoughts about divorce out into the world. And I just indulged that because it was what I wanted. And in the meantime, instead of hyperfixating on every little thing my kids were doing or not doing, I just let myself make peace with the status quo. It was kind of messy. I fed them. I loved them. I supported them emotionally. I didn't just stop taking care of my kids. It's like insane that anyone would. Sometimes our brains want to argue with insanity. Like, but what about my kids? Yeah, I still loved them and took care of them. I just wasn't hyper fixated on making sure every nook and cranny of their life was filled out, right? I didn't jump into a bunch of extracurriculars. I didn't try to um, uh, rush their emotional journey and their grief that they were experiencing at the time. I had to make some tough decisions about selling the house. It sold so quickly. That's such a fun story. I'll have to tell it on another episode. It sold really quickly, and we moved towns away from their grandparents, away from everything they'd ever known. That was hard for them. But I already knew that if I took care of myself and made sure that I was thriving and that this vision was becoming a reality for me, it would be the most impactful thing I could do for them. Even though that was really uncomfortable for them to experience, I asked a lot of them and I held their hand the whole way, but I wasn't going to try to protect them from more negative emotion and hold the entire family back because they needed me to be thriving. So I went first. And because I was so certain through that whole process that it was working out, that we were going to figure it out, that it was going to be okay, and it was, and they saw that happening, and they saw me celebrating, and they saw me crying, they saw me being a messy human, but ultimately, our quality of life improved. And it wasn't long after that I want to say we were in the rental house still, and they had just started in their new school. So they went from being homeschooled to a massive public school district. I think each of them had like 1,000 kids in their school overnight, like from being homeschooled to public school. And it was a pretty intense transition. But one night I was kissing my oldest goodnight. I was saying goodnight to him. And he said, I just love my life so much. I wouldn't change a thing, Mom. And he said it without thinking, right? He said it without without the context, without the story that we might tell about having divorced parents. He was just really present in the moment with this new version of his life. And I said goodnight to him and I left the room. I just started sobbing because at that time, I didn't have any evidence that what I was choosing to believe was going to turn out to be true. I was just working on sheer audacity and belief and determination that there was a better way. And even if it turned out not to be true, it still couldn't be worse than what everyone was offering me in terms of what our lives had to look like for a long time, right? So that moment where I got this beautiful confirmation from the universe that I was right. I was right about me. I was right about my vision. I was right about my desire and holding it as sacred and prioritizing that even above their emotional comfort, which I really was just so desperate to create as their mom. And it just continued to snowball from there. And it's not to say that, gosh, those first couple years were so excruciating and for so many different reasons. You can hear more about that on the private podcast. It was so hard. But ultimately, net the net of that what has been incredible because we're all building emotional resilience. We're all seeing kind of together, growing up together and seeing, oh, we can navigate some really emotionally difficult things and come out the other side, not just okay, but better. And now we start to make room for, okay, this is so good. So good it doesn't make sense. How can it get even better? What would make it even better? Just from a place of curiosity and desire, not because we're not grateful and not because something is wrong that needs to be fixed, but just allowing the human spirit and the human creativity to thrive through you, because we are creators. We are here to create a reality, to live our life. You're an artist in that sense. So to paint one reality and then say, and what else? And what next is so liberating and such an easier way to live. And it truly does optimize the chance that your kids are going to be more than okay. I don't believe that it is the circumstance of divorce or marriage or two parents or one parent that determines whether or not kids thrive. I know society wants to tell us that, but I don't believe it. I believe that what creates thriving kids is an emotionally healthy, regulated parent figure that they feel safe with, that is showing them how to be okay through adversity, and is not giving the responsibility of their well-being to their children, which is what we naturally want to do. Me too. I'm like, okay, I can't be okay until you're okay. So please, here, can you please be okay so that I can relax a little? They don't want that responsibility. They just want to see you thrive because that makes them feel safe. Even if they don't always love the decision that you're making, it truly does create a sense of safety and helps them feel like you are in command of your life and you're not waiting around micromanaging them and hoping that they're going to be okay. They don't give that responsibility to them. Also, this is related, but kind of a side note. It's not your kid's job to make you feel like a good mom. That is your job. Your job is to do the work you need to do so that you can believe that you're the best mom for your kids, which I already know is true. But you need to believe that. And then no matter what they say to you, because they're going to get mad, they're going to have their kids, right? They're going to push boundaries and do kid things. And they might say things like, I hate you, or I can't believe you're doing this, or I hate this, or I don't want to do this. And your job is to be able to hold your own belief that you're a good mom and not need them to show up a certain way to manage that belief for you. My brain is so good at, it still does this, by the way, watching them. Like if something goes kind of sideways or a lot sideways, like if you get a text in the middle of the day that says, hey, don't worry, there's been a misunderstanding. The vice principal is going to call you, but you need to come get me as soon as possible. When you get that text message, okay? For example, your brain is going to want to blame the divorce. It's going to want to make everything a problem you wouldn't otherwise experience because you're divorced. Please don't do that to yourself. We'll never know. But there's no upside in believing that the reason your kids are being normal kids is because you got divorced. Just know. We're not going to do that. If they're having a hard day or something goes sideways at school, that particular incident turned out to be fine, by the way. It's a funny story. I'm not going to tell it, but it was pretty cute. What actually, well, I don't know if it was all cute necessarily, but it was fine. Kids are still going to be kids. Give them room to be kids without making it mean the world is ending. I really wanted to do this. I really wanted to make everything this big problem that we had to work through. Sometimes you just got to like be a parent and say, okay, yeah, but we're not doing this, and this is a no, and you're allowed to be upset about it, and it's okay that this happened, but there's consequences, whatever. However you need to parent. But don't torture yourself by making everything that you feel a negative emotion about mean that it's because you got divorced, because that's absurd. And it's not helpful, even if it's true. But there's no way to prove that. So why are we doing this to ourselves? Okay, moral of the episode. If you want your kids to be okay, you give them the greatest possible chance at doing that by showing them how and trusting yourself to follow your instincts, your desire, that vision, and to give yourself the gift of making your life one that you love waking up in every day and not being in a hurry. It might take 3 years. Maybe it takes less. Maybe it takes 5. But you just keep going, determined, focused, and clear on the difference between having a feeling, a negative emotion, and what you want for your life, and working on your own emotional maturity so that you can show your kids how. The women I work with are incredibly emotionally intelligent, especially when it comes to other people. I know y'all can read a room. You walk into a room, you can read body language, you can read a facial expression, you can read the vibe of a room in an instant. It's your superpower. But you need to develop that skill set with your own nervous system so that you don't need to control the room before you're allowed to be okay, before you're allowed to be thriving. So understanding how to up-level your emotional intelligence and your relationship to yourself really does make you unstoppable. And it is so fun to share the big moments, the breakthroughs that you're going to have with your kids, with the people that you love. If you don't have kids, well, I don't know why you'd be listening to this episode, but if you don't, like with your family, right? It's so fun to share those moments with them. It makes the emotional discomfort that you have to feel along the way so worth it. So you got to show your kids how to be okay. And isn't that a fun assignment? This gets to be about you. And when you make it about you, you're actually kind of great. So it's all going to be okay. You can trust that. And see what happens. All right. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, you can always reach out to me on Instagram, or if you're in my newsletter, if you get my newsletter, you can hit reply to that. And I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to the So Good It Doesn't Make Sense podcast. If today's episode resonated, please take a minute and leave a review. It helps women find this work and change their lives and divorces too. For more support, be sure you follow me on Instagram at Megan Norris Coaching. That's where I share real-time strategy, perspective, and what it actually looks like day to day. And when you're ready to go deeper, join the Divorce Academy, my monthly membership for women navigating divorce with clarity, power, and community. I'll see you next week. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for legal, financial, or mental health advice. Please consult with licensed professionals as needed.